Hello, everyone, from the Matt Morse Digital Studio here in Fresno with the voice of the FCC Rams, Scott Bemis, and our sports director here at the station. I am Dean Shiro. Welcome aboard. We're getting ready to have another college football and NFL weekend, but we start with the greatest spectacle in all of sports, in my opinion, the Ryder Cup. It'll kick off tomorrow morning.
What an
on
introduction,
a Friday.
Dean.
Huh?
What an introduction.
I mean, listen, come on, it's big. It's at Bethpage Black. It's Long Island. You got all the New Yorkers out there. Europeans coming.
What a sports weekend this is, by the way. Not only do you have NFL, college football, incredible games in the college football slate this weekend, but then you got the Ryder Cup just hanging out there, right? In a weird way, I'm kind of sad that there's all this other cool stuff going on because I feel like the Ryder Cup is sort of... It's not going to get lost, obviously. People are going to be paying attention, but with all the football going on, I hope that it doesn't kind of, just fall into the background too much.
I'm with you. I wish it would have a little bit more exclusivity, but it's hard when you're doing stuff in September, and it's just going to be a challenge. But with that said, let's come on in hot. Right back to the Ryder Cup, Scott. We got a couple topics here. One that kind of irks you and one that kind of irks me. They both kind of irk me, I'll be honest. But the players getting paid has become a huge issue with some involved in this tournament. Why?
Well, I just think this thing's getting blown way out of proportion, right? I get it. I mean, I understand. You see the headline, guys are getting paid to play for their country. You know, what kind of message is this sending? Should this be happening? In the grand scheme of things, it's really not that much money that's coming these guys' ways. And if you've listened to them during the week, they're going to be using this money, most of them, I think, and are going to be donating it to charity themselves. So if you haven't been paying attention, basically the American team has brought up in the past the idea, I think, of getting paid. Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay before the last Ryder Cup were a little bit more vocal about it, that maybe there should be, some kind of a financial thing that you earn considering how big this event has become and what a cash cow it is, for the PGA of America, for the television networks, for everybody associated with golf. And, to be honest with you, I kind of think there's nothing wrong with that. And, do I think they should be getting, $30 million?
No, yes.
But what they're getting in the end is they're getting, I believe, $200,000. I believe each player is getting as a stipend.
Yes,
right.
That's
and
correct.
Then the PGA of America is also giving them $300,000 to donate to charity as well for being a part of the American team. And I think this is fine. And as I said, if you listen to the players this week, a lot of them said that they're going to take their money and they're going to give it, to their own charities and can help grow the game that way. Now, the reason it's become a big deal is because the Europeans are making a big deal of this, right? They keep bringing it up. And it's the narrative has kind of become, this is one reason why the Americans have struggled in the Ryder Cup, because it doesn't mean as much to them.
Worried about making money.
They're worried about making money. It doesn't mean as much to them. Man, I just push back on that so hard. There is not one American player that's thinking, I can't wait to make the Ryder Cup because I get that $200,000 stipend. No, they want to make the Ryder Cup because they want to be a part of something that every single golfer who's ever played in the Ryder Cup talks about being their best experience in the game of golf. And they want to win so badly. I mean, you can see it on their faces. Not to say the Europeans don't want to do the same, but this money thing, it's really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. And we've seen it with college football. When there is so much money that comes into a sport in some way, it should filter down to the players in some way. And I bet at some point in the future, you're going to be seeing the Europeans actually getting a little, piece of the pie as well. By the way, just want to point out too, the Europeans talk about reinvesting a lot of their money into the team. So it's just how you look at it, right?
Sure.
Because by all reports, the Europeans have been in New York for a couple of weeks now.
Right.
They've been having the golf trip of a lifetime, playing all these courses, the wives, the dinners, the gifts. There's all kinds of fringe benefits that come along with being on the Ryder Cup, not only for the players, but for, the wives as well, and the caddies and everything else. And so there is money that's being infused into that European Ryder Cup team. It may not be in the form of actual dollars, right? But it's in the form of gifts and free rounds and amazing trips and dinners and all this stuff, right? And
question.
So I don't know. To me, it's being blown out of proportion. this is not the reason any American is motivated to make the Ryder Cup.
Right. So just really quick tournament lines as of this Thursday, the day before it starts. USA is a -150 to win. Europe is a +170, and a tie is +1,000. So advantage United States, obviously playing in New York. But they're going against a very, very good European side. Only one rookie, a ton of experience, a wealth of experience on the European side. 4 rookies on the United States side. So, Scotty, I'm just going to ask for your humble opinion on what you think is going to go down.
Well, it's interesting because, we talk about home field advantage, and especially in college football, being a big deal. There's a few NFL stadiums that you can kind of quantify that home field advantage a little bit more. This is one Ryder Cup where the home field advantage and the home course advantage, home area advantage, really being in New York, like you're talking about, I think will be a factor. So I'm not surprised the Americans are favored, but looking at the betting line, I think there's actually some value on the Europeans at +150. I'm not going to have a play on this. I just want to sit back and watch it and enjoy it. But considering recent Ryder Cups and the history there and everything else, and it just feels like this European team has a pretty singular focus that they've been talking about trying to win on American soil in New York for a long, long time.
How about since the final press conference at Marco Simone, when Rory McIlroy laid the gauntlet down and said, you haven't done anything until you've won a Road Ryder Cup, and we're going to do that at Bethpage Black, period. End of quote. That was on camera. So let's go, right?
You've got some great American players, obviously, right? Like Scheffler and Schauffele and players like that, right? But I would argue the top of the European lineup a little more formidable at this point, right? I mean, because a guy like Xander, he's coming back now, right? And you like obviously having Xander Schauffele on your team, but he hasn't been excelling at the 2024 Xander level at this point, right? You obviously got the best player in the world in Scotty Scheffler at this point. You've got the dynamic Bryson DeChambeau, who I think will be a huge storyline during this tournament. But when you look at the Europeans, right, you got guys.
Steady Eddies. A bunch of steady Eddies.
Rory and Rahm, and Hatton and a veteran like Justin Rose and Lowry. These guys are used to being in the fire.
Even guys like towards the latter part of the lineup, the Strakas, I mean, they still have Ryder Cup experience. Fitzpatrick, I think this is his 4th or 5th one, So it's like, from 1 to 11, I would say they're as strong as they've ever been. They do have Højgaard as their rookie, so we'll see how he does. But you've got 4 rookies on the United States side, including Spawn, Cameron Young, who's from the area, Russell Henley, and then who am I missing? I'm missing one.
Ben Griffin.
Well. So there's your 4. So,
well, the other thing about the American team is that Keegan Bradley is going to be relying a lot on guys like Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlake, Colin Morikawa, guys who come in with a great pedigree, right? As far as their overall careers in the game of golf.
Right.
But none of these 3 guys in particular have been playing at a super elite level. Justin Thomas has been playing pretty well, right? But, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, they're kind of on this team based on, reputation and the name brands that they bring and their past results in the game
and
of golf.
their world ranking,
and
too. A guy like Colin Morikawa is still in the top 10 in the world ranking, but
he
hasn't had a great year, let's be honest. He has not.
So you're going to need guys like that, because I think you know what you're going to get out of Scheffler, hopefully.
Right. Yeah, let's hope.
Right, yeah. I think Bryson DeChambeau is going to have a great Ryder Cup, because I think he's going to embrace this, right? And I think this is going to fit his personality almost better than any other golf event that's out there, especially being in New York.
Right.
And so I expect Bryson to play well.
Well, let's talk about Bryson for a second, because I do have a bone to pick with Mr. DeChambeau. The opening ceremony was yesterday. They had to move it up a day because of weather.
Okay.
And they introduced all the players and where they're from. And they introduced Bryson from Texas. That bothers me. I'm sorry. Guys, everyone knows here in the Valley, he is a Clovis East grad. He is a Valley born and bred. My man over here has interviewed his parents at their home in Clovis, California, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Bryson DeChambeau, you are a California boy, and I'm just going to say, come on, man. I know you live in Texas now, but they even said that Scotty Scheffler's from New Jersey because that's where he was born. But he's a Texas boy as well, right? So, Bryson DeChambeau, you're from California. I have a bone to pick with you. You better win. All right, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no, I mean, having said that, I'm not sure how that all works and everything. I know that Bryson is very proud of his Central Valley roots and that this area means a lot to him. But yeah, that we'll always know him as the Clovis East Timberwolf, right? And by the way, speaking of Central Valley connections, don't know if you saw today, but Bryson's not the only Central Valley connection.
Yes, on the juniors.
Asterisk Tally playing in the junior Ryder Cup. The American team clinched the win.
They did? Okay, they were on the border when I saw this morning.
Yeah, and she went...
Congratulations, Asterisk Tally.
She went 3-0-1, of course, Asterisk from Chowchilla in that junior Ryder Cup. I mean, get ready to see her for years to come in the game of golf. I mean, she's going to be the next big thing when it comes to golf from this area.
I saw her name with a red flag next to it, and I saw A Tally, and I'm like, I know that name. So congratulations to the Tally family. That's great stuff. So we're going to get into a little bit of college football now. We got to get into some of these big games we got going on this weekend. Most of them are like they're Big Ten matchups. There's a couple of SEC matchups. Let's start with the game in Happy Valley really quick. You've got Oregon traveling to Penn State. Their first real serious test of the year. They had to go to Northwestern and they got a win. But what are your thoughts on Danny Lanning and the boys going into Happy Valley?
Well, you kind of summed it up there. It's their first big test, right? We get to see where these teams are at, at this point, Penn State and Oregon. Obviously, I've watched a little bit of the highlights. I bring it up all the time. Big Ten and 60s. Watched a replay of the Oregon State game. A quick replay in the wee hours of the morning last night. Just a little glimpse into my life at this point.
Late night Bemis.
Yeah, late night Bemis watching Big Ten and 60s on the DVR. But Dante Moore looks good. Obviously we saw this quarterback play at UCLA. He showed glimpses of being an outstanding quarterback and kind of never really popped maybe at the level there in that year. But he was a true freshman, right? Playing for the Bruins. Always a little cautious when I think about Oregon, traveling across the country to play in a place like this.
In a whiteout.
But you told me before the show that you love Oregon, especially getting the 3 or 3.5.
Yeah, you might see them in my underdog of the week category here, which we're going to do right after just these games. 3.5 on the road, it's a pretty juicy number. If it was 2.5, I'd probably stay away, but we'll go over that in a minute. So let's get into the Fighting Kalen DeBoers, our own man, former Fresno State coach. They traveled to Athens, Georgia, and played the Bulldogs down there, Kirby's boys. So what are your thoughts on the Alabama-Georgia matchup?
A sneaky feeling that Alabama is going to put a good effort together in this game, right? They've kind of been written off. It's kind of been a talking point nationally. Hey, what's happened to Alabama? Kalen DeBoer's future has been, bandied around ever since that opening loss to Florida State. I have a feeling that the Crimson Tide are going to rally in this one. That doesn't mean necessarily that they'll win,
right?
Because, going into Athens and getting a win, that's easier said than done. And, I'm a fan of Georgia. I'm a fan of Georgia's quarterback play, although they did give up a bunch of points against Tennessee.
Right.
And since that opening loss, Alabama's quarterback has been playing better. Right. Ty Simpson. And so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Alabama rallies around Kalen DeBoer, how the players doing. I think you'll get a sense for where he stands in that locker room, with that program by how Alabama performs in this game.
Okay, my only question on Alabama is, can they stop the Georgia run? Because the way Georgia won that game against Tennessee was with the running game, the offensive line dominating at the end. So it'll be interesting to see how the offensive line of Georgia and the defensive line of Alabama, as the game progresses. It's a 3.5 point spread, so it's more than a field goal. So the Sharpies kind of have it at that number. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. So we got another interesting game. We've got another team traveling cross country. You've got Ohio State, number 1 Ohio State, traveling to Seattle to play the Washington Huskies. Washington coming off a Big Apple Cup win last week. Again, it's not a great Washington State team, but it's a big win on the road. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, this one should be fun. It should be fun. I really want to give out Washington as a play here, getting over a touchdown at home in Seattle. I'm sure it'll be a raucous environment, but something kept me from being able to give it out as an official play. Just because I think sometimes, it's just we kind of underestimate the physicality of a team like Ohio State on both sides of the ball, at the line of scrimmage and everything else. But I will say this, Washington has a very talented quarterback. They were, I think, a super sleeper for me in the Big Ten before the year when we gave out our conference picks.
You did make that a super sleeper, yep.
Yeah, I mean, they blew out Washington State. They really haven't been challenged much yet, right?
Not really.
By anybody.
Colorado State gave them a little bit of a challenge up there 2 weeks ago, but Washington pulled away late in that game.
Now, we saw with Oregon last year, they proved obviously that they belong and they can hang in the Big Ten. They went undefeated during the regular season. I think some of these West Coast Pac-12 teams, specifically talking about Washington and USC and UCLA, although they're down right now, but I think they want to prove that they belong in this conference. And so, obviously getting a win in a setting like this would be huge. And I think, Jedd Fisch has the program going in the right direction there at Washington. The foundation that was built by Kalen DeBoer there, is they're heading in the right. They got a talented quarterback. Would not be surprised if that game, is close into the fourth quarter.
Gotcha. One of these things I'd love to see the Big Ten do, I know that, with television and stuff, I'd love to see them make one of these Ohio State, Michigan cross-country trips, like an 8 p.m. Pacific time game. They won't do it. They're going to make it between like 12:30 and 5 o'clock. But I'd love to see, if it was like an 8 o'clock game, I'd say, okay, I think Washington's got a chance. But I think Ohio State has too many weapons for them. I just want to get to one more quick game before we get to the NFL. Two undefeated teams in the SEC. You've got LSU traveling to Ole Miss and playing the Fighting Lane Kiffin. So real quick thought on that game real quick.
Well, Ole Miss is, they've got their backup quarterback in the game, but he's actually was pretty impressive last week in a win. Even heard some people maybe saying, hey, maybe worth a dart throw on a Heisman bet on that quarterback who's in there.
No pun intended on the Dart comment.
Well,
right?
There you go. Yeah, Jackson Dart being an Ole Miss rebel.
Had to throw that in.
Yeah, LSU obviously kind of been winning ugly at this point, and I mean every week in the SEC, it's a brutal path, to try to get through it, and so now here are LSU, who's already seems like they're playing in a big game every week.
Right.
Once again, they're playing in another big game. I think I would lean LSU there, just with a quarterback who didn't start the year as the starter for Ole Miss. I mean, he's going to be going up against a defense with the Tigers there that has a bunch of NFL guys.
All right, and then let's get into our underdogs of the week. I'll do two. I'll go first. Like I said, I already mentioned
the dogs that are going to be barking this week, right, Dean?
Yeah, I will take Oregon plus 3.5 at Penn State. And no homer pick here, but give me Colorado plus 6.5 at home against BYU in a revenge game. I don't necessarily know if we're going to win that game. I just hope that we keep it within 6.5. So, Scotty, you're up.
Yeah, again, we're just kind of a segment we're gonna be doing each week where a couple dogs that could be barking on Saturday in the college ranks. I identified a couple, and it's a play that I've already given out, but I don't know how Iowa is getting over a touchdown at home against Indiana. I mean, this is total recency bias, in my opinion, with regards to Indiana last week. I mean, it is hard to go into Kinnick Stadium and get a win there at Iowa. And so, you're getting plus 240 on the money line with the Hawkeyes. That would be my biggest dog that could be barking.
Biggest barking dog.
Biggest barking dog. Another one that I think could make some noise on Saturday. I've been impressed with Auburn, even though, a tough loss at Oklahoma. I think they had more than like a 10-minute time of possession advantage in that game, which means they kind of controlled the flow of that game. Got a really tough whistle in that game. If you really go back and break it down, a couple plays, there was that weird substitution play near the sideline that the SEC later came out and said should not have been allowed and was illegal.
The hiding of the player.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And there were a few other moments in that game where there was a fumble that was overturned. It was and then it wasn't, and all this stuff. It was just. I think Auburn's been playing well. They went into Baylor and really dominated Baylor in that opening week. Only concern here is this back-to-back weeks on the road for Auburn, right? You're going to Oklahoma, then you go back to Georgia, and now you have to go back out to A&M. It's not a great travel schedule, but you're getting almost a touchdown there with Auburn. You're getting about 2-1 on the money line.
Okay.
And I think if you're going to play that game, you know what? Play it on the money line.
Got it. We're just going to feature a couple NFL games just to go over the weekend real quick. There's a couple that kind of caught our eye. We're going to start with the Chargers traveling to New Jersey to play the Giants. The Giants have made a quarterback change. So speaking of Jackson Dart, you're in the lineup, son. So you're going to play against the undefeated Chargers, and Russell Wilson's going to sit on the bench. So what is your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, there's a couple NFL games that I'm interested to see on Sunday. Some storylines that are interesting to me for sure. Jackson Dart making his first start for the Giants, right, in that game. Will it make a difference? Like, was it really Russell Wilson, or was it just that the Giants are bad, right? And it's going to take a little time for Jackson Dart. I'm sure there's going to be some plays where he makes some mistakes, but at least if you're a Giant fan, you can kind of sit back on Sunday and have a little bit of hope, right? And have a little bit of excitement about what this team is bringing to the table, even if they play poorly, even if they lose another game. Another game that's super interesting, right, as far as like what happens to the loser here and the result. Ravens and Chiefs. Yeah. I mean, these are 1-2 teams at this point remaining. The loser of this game is going to be 1-3 at this point. Imagine that. Before this season, you're looking at it and saying, hey, either the Ravens or the Chiefs are going to be 1-3 after 4 weeks. I think you could have gotten some pretty good odds on that, right?
You sure could have. Right. And then let's go over my poor Rams, licking their wounds after, blowing a game in Philadelphia, coming home now to play the super aforementioned Indianapolis Colts with super quarterback Daniel Jones. So, Scotty, what are we going to do here?
Well, this is another game that I'm interested in because it's like Indiana Jones. I love that nickname, by the way, that they've given him. A few people has been looking great and goes to LA now for a meeting with the Rams, who we both agree we think is one of the best teams in the NFC at this point.
Yeah.
We'll get to see, can Daniel Jones keep this up? I mean, are we really looking at, the rebirth of Daniel Jones, or is it just kind of a short sample size that we sometimes see in the NFL where things kind of, revert to the mean that we've seen before? I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to see how he plays again in LA on Sunday.
Yeah, my question on this game is, are the Rams going to let the Eagles beat them twice? So basically, is there going to be a hangover to the point where now the Colts are going to come into SoFi and get a win? So I'm hoping the Rams are going to bounce back. I think hopefully they practice a lot of special teams this week, especially field goal unit, because that was just atrocious what happened last week. You let it happen twice, and I know it's a tough environment. Lincoln Financial is a tough environment for anybody to win in, but you have two opportunities: one to ice the game earlier, one to ice the game at the buzzer, and you can't get it done. So. Tough. So we'll see what happens.
I think in the college ranks, it's much more likely that those hangovers happen. I think in professional football, right, first off, there's 17 weeks. These guys are pros. They're older. I think the Rams will bounce back.
All right. With that being said, let's get into our money plays. All right, Scotty. Well, we've got 2 shows left to wrap up the month of September. Just to remind everyone, we have a contest every month. We start with $1,000 of fictitious money. We make our wagers, and at the end of the month, we have our champ. So here's where we stand right now. So Scotty is currently at $697. He put a lot of eggs in the Seahawks money line, Ravens money line. First part hit very easily. The second part, he knew it was going to be a tough one. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Look, the Lions deserved to win the game, so it wasn't like it was a bad beat or anything. They outplayed the Ravens, in my opinion, in that game. But, after getting that Seahawks win there, maybe I should have considered coming back on the Lions there, maybe trying to middle of that and kind of guarantee myself maybe around, breaking even and then possibly, have an upside there. But Iowa, I gave out on Monday, plus 7.5 here. Here's the deal. We start with $1,000 each month. It's a contest between Dean and I to see who can end up with more money. Dean is doing well, so I need to do some desperation plays here or some big money bets
here
at this point,
Scotty.
right?
Here's your play.
So I really should raise the bet there on Iowa because that was probably my best bet of the weekend. I gave that on Monday. Hope you tail me on that. Hope we're successful. Then I'm going to go back to the well with that 2-team money line, short favorites, getting it around to even money. I like Kansas at home. They've been playing well. They bring in Cincinnati this weekend. Cincinnati kind of a middling Big 12 team. Kansas is kind of riding some momentum here. Saw firsthand what they could do against Fresno State earlier this year, and they've kind of kept it going. Their only loss, a tight loss at Missouri where they were up deep into the second half.
Right.
So I think they're about a 4 or 5 point favorite against Cincinnati there. I'm going to take them on the money line and parlay them together. Should say
I apologize
Texans there.
for the Texans. There's a typo there. My
Texans,
apologies.
so that's an NFL game there. Texans versus the Titans.
Right.
Might consider maybe kind of betting against the Titans, or figuring out a way to include their opponent in some money liners here. So I got this money line to around even money.
Yep.
Going to go big here to try to get back in the running with Dean. Hopefully I can get back over that 1,000 mark and maybe give Dean a run for his money.
All right, so here's what I got last week. This Monday was very successful. The baseball didn't hit, but all three of the other ones, including the 2 WNBAs, which I'm extremely proud of, both hit. So Lions-Ravens over easily hit. I was a little surprised how easily it did hit in the third quarter, actually, and then there were still points to go after that. The Aces, I told you the Aces were in a desperation mode. They had to win. They lost game 1. They could not go back to Indiana down 2-0 in a 5-game series. So the Aces handled their business there. And then the Mercury shocked the Lynx. The Mercury were down, I think, as many as 15 in that game. Came back, forced overtime, and ended up getting the win in Minnesota. So now they head home. These 2 games now will be on Friday night. You've got the Aces traveling to Indiana, and you've got the Mercury hosting the Lynx. So both series are tied at 1-1. So I just want to go over that real quick. And then I've got a few more plays this week, so I got a little bit more time on here. I got a money line play that's kind of getting ready to start right now. Dodgers money line, Tigers money line, Mets money line. Tigers and Mets both really have to win. The Dodgers have almost clinched the West, so it's getting close there. The Tigers are in free fall mode. This is kind of a gamble there, but 10 to win 57. I got a Ryder Cup move, Scotty. So I'm going to take the United States getting 1.5 points versus Europe at minus 295. So they could lose by less than 2. I'm not saying they will. I hope they win. I'm rooting for U.S. with all my heart, but betting-wise, the Europeans are very good. So 100 to win 33, getting a 1.5. And then give me Cam Young as the top USA rookie point winner. The young man is from the New York area. Plus 210, $25 to win 52. He has to be the outright point winner out of the 4 rookies. All right. Going to college football, another money line parlay with a bunch of favorites. Got Florida State on Friday night at Virginia. Georgia Tech, who was one of Scotty's ACC sleepers, watch out for them. Kansas, which was one of Scotty's Big 12 sleepers, watch out for them. North Texas,
which was not one of the
should have been. But North Texas blew Washington State out at home a couple weeks ago. Ohio State going on the road, and then Baylor money line against the Oklahoma. Oh, man, poor Oklahoma State. They fired Mike Gundy this week after he was the most tenured coach of the Big 12.
By the way, you might consider just sometimes teams, I've mentioned it before on this show, get a little bump from a change in coaches that you see in the first week. And then after that, it kind of, it kind of wears off.
It's a big spread, by the way.
I might consider maybe grabbing Oklahoma State against Baylor first half.
Okay.
And maybe also take UCLA first half against Northwestern with their new coaching staff.
Yeah. So another $20 NCAA parlay football. New Mexico, their host. It's a border war. It's New Mexico versus New Mexico State. Just money line there. Air Force. Money line, Old Dominion money line, NC State money line, Boise State money line, and Memphis. All big favorites, not huge money. You guys can break these up any way you want. You could use these any way you want, and they should hopefully help you. And then I did a $10 NCAA spread parlay. Iowa State minus 6.5. I bought Ohio State down to minus 6.5, and Oregon was already at 3.5. And then I bought Georgia down to 2.5. So I basically, with all those moves, got it to still plus 951, $10 bet. So 10 to win 191. Again, break that down, guys, as you want.
Of all your plays, I kind of like that one right there.
Okay, because I did buy those numbers down, those spreads down to more reasonable numbers. And then I just got a really quick NFL parlay, Chargers, Lions, Bills, huge favorites, not to win huge money, but you put those 3 together and you really can get almost even money on it, so that's not a bad play. And then I only took one WNBA because I really don't like the other game, but Aces going to Indiana, just straight money line, minus 185, 25 to win half of that, 1351. So, Scotty, any last words before we got to go? We got about 45 seconds.
Dean, I like what you're doing here. You're getting creative with some of these. You're buying points down. Like I said, that $10 NCAA parlay, Other than Iowa State is might be a little bit. I'm a little cautious about them. Under a touchdown there
They're
against
hosting Arizona. So
They're
hosting Arizona in Ames.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, and you're right. Like in theory, you would think that that'd be a tough place for Arizona to go and get a win. But all those other picks in that parlay there, those are all heavyweights, right? Those are teams that, consistently, are winners.
All right, Scott and I will be back on Monday. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Beem and Dean Show.